we have now successfully downloaded VS Code. If you ran into any issues, um, I hope that Google has some good resources. Like I said, it's a very popular, probably the most popular editor right now as I'm writing this. So I think there's a lot of great resources online. I hope you can find some helpful information there. We're going to continue on and learn about VS Code. So we are at the welcome screen still. Let's look around a little bit and compare and contrast to PyCharm because that's what we are most familiar with right now. So we see over here we've got some items on the left that's similar to PyCharm. The file explorer, let's check that. We can open a folder if we have a folder with a bunch of code in it. That makes it easy to access all those scripts or files. So I've just got a simple folder here, my scripts. Let's select that folder. And we just had one script there. Do you trust the authors of the files of this folder? Yes, because I created it. It's essentially just saying VS Code could potentially execute code from that folder, and it's not like it's going to be going and running a bunch of code on its own, but it's just a disclosure there. So I've got a script here in the My Scripts folder. I can click on that. It opens it right up, and excuse me. We did get a pop-up here on the bottom. Do you want to install the recommended Python extension from Microsoft for the Python language? And the extensions like this are usually quite helpful as we're writing Python because they just make it more tailored to what we need. So I do recommend installing that. So I'm going to install that. We see 130 million installations of this extension. You can clearly see that VS Code is very popular. I'd be curious to know, and this extension is very popular. I'd be curious to know what that number is as you download it. So I've already got my folder open here, but we've installed that extension. So here we've got, let's see what we had. We had a numbers. This is from earlier in the course. And it looks like we were learning about for loops. So we could run this. So similar location up here in the top right to PyCharm. We can run this Python file. If we just click this play button, we'll run it. That pops up our terminal, and we see it executed the file by using Python. The Python executable, Python 3.12 executable. So that's the Python version we're using. And we ran our code in the terminal there. A few other options here. We'll look at the debug console in the next video. But the terminal is where we're going to get a lot of our output. So we can connect this to Git. If you're familiar with Git, for source control, we're not going to look at that at this time. We may look at that later. Various other things here. We show our Python extension there. That's the extensions pane. We could search for things and search and replace and go back to our Explorer. This is where we'll be living a lot of the time, is at our Explorer pane. So as we learn more about VS Code, we'll undoubtedly get more into the ins and outs of running our code. So that's pretty much it for now. Actually, we could do some other things. I encourage you to just compare and contrast to PyCharm because you now have learned 2 IDEs. Maybe you have learned others, depending on where you're at in your programming journey. But we've learned 2 IDEs, and if we can compare and contrast, it just really reinforces that learning. So things that are similar or different to PyCharm, that will help us to learn VS Code. Locations of things, the top right, that's where we're running code. The tabs at the top, that's where there's a lot of options. We have other options here to run code, undo, etc. The left pane, the bottom pane. So a lot of similarities between VS Code and PyCharm. One other similarity, we go over here to our Explorer. We could create a new file. We could create a new folder. We can refresh or collapse. Let's create a new file. Let's just call it test.py. We could create a new text file. mytext.txt. So you see, based on the extension, it will treat it as Python or text. If we do test.py, this is again in our my scripts folder. Print welcome to VS Code. Again, let's run it over here at the top. Run Python file. There we go. We outputted welcome to VS Code. So that was our output. So that's a quick intro to VS Code. We've only spent 5 or 6 minutes on this. We'll get more into the weeds, but as we go along in the course, show you more tips and tricks. But for now, we will move on to the next section, which is debugging in VS Code. See you there.